Bible School Radio, 91.3 KDKR Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, and 91.3 KYJC Commerce.
Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, what should you know about buying a car, Part 2? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Tony Joe's with me today, as he is every Friday, to take your Car Corner questions. We do have lines open. We'd love to hear from you if you've got a question for Tony Joe. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357, 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. If you got a question for me, send it in. I will get that taken care of for you. Love to get information, questions and comments from you through that part of the website, and you can take advantage of that, prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Tony Joe, how's it going today?
It is going very well, and you, sir?
I'm doing great. You just waited for me to turn your mic up, yeah.
Why talk? Nobody's going to hear me.
That's true.
So, Bob, how is your week? How has your week been going?
It's good.
It's
good. It's even better this Friday.
Yes, that is true. So, basically, everything's okay.
Yes, everything.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
And yourself?
Fine.
But
I'm tired of working for a living, but, other than that, everything's fine.
So are you looking to buy a new car? Because I've got some tips here.
Really?
When's the last time you bought a new car?
I haven't purchased a new vehicle since 1987. It's the last and only brand new car I ever purchased.
What did you buy?
When the kids were little, we bought an 87 Aerostar Ford minivan. So with the sliding doors, so you can put the groceries in there. So it was the big fad at the time.
So 1987 was the last time that you purchased a vehicle.
That's correct.
So that's interesting. So
I learned a hard lesson. Don't buy a brand new car. I mean, that's my personal. I shouldn't say that. That's my personal opinion. Okay. Money, as you know, being a money manager and a person who invests and is very prudent with money and what to do with it. Automobiles, I have decided, are probably just above gambling and drinking whiskey or being an alcoholic and drinking and losing your money that way. The car investment is absolutely one of the worst things you can do with your money. You buy a car, especially now. I went to the stock show in Fort Worth a couple of weeks ago and saw some of the new cars for sale, and I'm going to tell you, the new cars that they have right now that I saw cost more than my first house that I ever bought. So it's just unbelievable to me that people can afford that. Well, I know a lot of people have money and they can afford it, but why would you, is what I'm saying. It is not a good investment on any level.
Well, what makes it worse is the interest rates on car loans.
And now there's that.
Just
right.
Unbelievable.
Right. And the interest right now.
That much money at 9%, 10%, if you've got great credits, you can get down there around 5%. But, yeah, it makes it even harder to consider getting a car, for sure. So help me fill in the blanks. So between 1987, so you had the Astro van, right? Did I say that right?
Why do you have to pick on me? Yes. 1987 was the last brand new vehicle I ever purchased.
Where's the Astro van today?
Aerostar Ford, not Astro. Astro Chevrolet. Oh, who knows where it is today? It's probably in the big Aerostar van in the sky.
So what have you been driving all these years? Because I know that you
Well, I'll
don't-
tell you, Bob.
I mean, you practically do. You live at the garage, but
Well, let me tell you what I drive
you have to get
ever
over-
since then. Ever since then, I drive anything that I can piece together, bubble gum, tie wraps, and baling twine, and hold it together for me to get to work and back. That's it. But I
So-
drive cheap.
so vehicles you've inherited.
Bob, let me tell you something. I fill up my gas tank and spend more in my car than it's worth, okay? So that's the kind of cars I drive. And although it's pathetic and sick, it appeals to me
It
because
does.
it's cheap.
And-
Yeah, and
and-
you're not
See,
you're
I
not
never took you as a cheap guy.
putting your money put your money into invest in your 401k, invest in anything but a brand new car. You're going to take a hit the minute you drive it off the lot. The depreciation is ridiculous. You finance it for, if you could actually buy a brand new car, pay it off in, say, 3 years max. 2 years would be great, but 3 years max. Most people cannot do that. Most regular folks cannot afford to do that. So you're going, I think now 7 and 8 years on an auto loan.
Yeah.
That is
Got to get
absolutely
those payments
the
down.
wrong thing.
Let's go to line one. Talk to Janet. Janet, thanks for waiting. What's on your mind today?
Hi, I have a 2005 Subaru Forester that needs about $4,000 worth of work. I'm thinking I need to get another car, but the Subarus out there they're not really comfortable for me, the Foresters. So I was wondering what kind of a car might be comparable.
Well, I will tell you this. I can name some comparable vehicles that you might test drive, but before we even get that far, can I talk to you about your particular vehicle? How many miles does it have on it?
138,000.
All right. Now, can you tell me why it needs 4,000? Can you remember any of the stuff that it needs?
Yes, there are a couple of major oil leaks. The timing belt, the axle boot is cracked, and new tires.
All four?
Yes.
All right. So let me just ask you something. If you had to replace the automobile, are you financially in a position to do so?
Probably yes, but the cost of new cars is really high, and I don't want to spend that
Okay,
much.
this is what I'm getting at. Try to follow me for a minute. You like the car you have. It fits you. You're used to it. If you were to
Yes.
invest $4,000 in this car at $138,000, this car will go and go and go and go. Subarus are bulletproof. So I'm just trying to give you an option to think about.
Okay.
You can go to, where did you have do you have a favorite mechanic that you trust?
Yes.
Good. And he's the one that gave you all the estimate on the $4,000 worth of work, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to say that it probably is in need of that kind of repair. A timing belt is a maintenance item. It's something you got to do like a tune-up or a brake job.
Okay.
The front axle boot is a common problem with front-wheel drive vehicles. It's not an unusual problem to have at all. And the oil leaks are going to be, by the sound of it, the oil leaks are where all the expense is, that and the four tires. But any car you ever drive, if you keep it long enough, you got to buy tires. So I'm not looking this vehicle as such a bad vehicle after all. I think what you want to know is it worth putting $4,000 into, or should you just get rid of it, wash your hands of it, and get another car? Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, my opinion, just my opinion, would be in today's market with the price of used vehicles being a shortage, driving the price, supply low, prices high, I think you're going to spend an awful lot more than you think until you go out there and shop. And I would suggest you take a second just to maybe put pen to paper and maybe weigh the option of fixing your car. Because if you had 300,000 on it, there wouldn't be a question. But 138,000 miles on a Subaru Forester, that's not a lot of miles in case you don't know that. That is about a third of the clock time that car is probably evaluated for. So you might just think about that. Now let's go to some comparable vehicles, okay?
Okay.
I assume you bought the Forester because you like the SUV style vehicle. I mean, you're not looking for a sedan. Yes. You want something like you have now.
Yes.
Kia, although they used to be very low quality, the dependability on Kias and the engineering has come up immensely. So I would look at some moderately priced cars would be Kia Sportage, Hyundai Santa Fe, something like that. You can move on to a Jeep Cherokee. Grand Cherokee is kind of like yours. It's a little bigger. The Kia Sportage and the Santa Fe are a little smaller, more like the size of your Subaru. But if you want to continue this, you can always call me back as you're shopping and ask me my opinion on what you're looking at. But right now, I would weigh the options very carefully.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very
Janet,
much.
Thank you for calling in, and Lord bless you.
And you.
1-877-913-5357. You know what's interesting? You talk about Hyundai and Kia. Would you compare them from a reliability standpoint in this day and time with the Honda, with the Toyota? I mean, you talk about reliable cars that have been reliable for decades.
Here's the trick to that, Bob, real quick. Toyota has gone down, in my opinion, in dependability. I would put them even with Toyota. I would not put them up there with Honda, Nissan.
1-877-913-5357. This is Bob Brooks. Stick around. Be right back.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
Enduring hardship and facing our own mortality can be overwhelming, but having an eternal perspective can make it less daunting. We'll see how that's possible, and we'll find out what makes the reading and preaching of the Bible both beneficial and necessary. That's this week on Truth for Life with Alistair Begg.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. 1-877-913-5357. I do have a line open. Would love to hear from you today. Now, you said something really quick before we got off for the break, and you slipped the word Nissan in there. Would you put Nissan up in the same place as a Honda? You know, you said Toyota's dropped a bit, dependability wise.
My opinion only, yes.
Well, so out of curiosity, how do you come to that conclusion?
Just by what I see and what I work with and when I look at the engineering behind something as I'm working on it. Mm-hmm. Toyota is still good, but don't get me wrong, they're good, but they have been better. Toyota, a few years ago, was a lot better built vehicle than some of the things they're doing now. Nissan, Honda, Subaru, a lot of the Japanese cars, they are really well-engineered cars for the most part, and they are pretty dependable for the most part. Nissan has their issues. There's a lot of guys out there that are listening that know about the transmission issues with Nissan Altimas and stuff with that CVT. Yeah, everybody has their little weak spots here and there, but overall, I think Toyota dependability has dropped somewhat from 10 years ago. Hyundai and Kia used to be throwaway cars. They have come up to an impressive point, in my opinion. They are well-built cars, and I'd rank them right up there with Toyota right now.
This is Bob Brooks. You are listening to the Special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. 1-877-913-5357. I guess what ends up happening, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is that in this day and time where there's so many pressures being applied to the automobile industry and the way they produce cars, they have to produce them to certain environmental standards and this kind of thing, that's where you'll really see where the car manufacturer will either step up or they'll cut corners.
Right, exactly.
And I think I'm kind of, that to me is kind of the message underneath what you're saying.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and I will tell you why it's that way. The political game that's played in the car industry is beyond anything we could discuss in the time we have left. But there are politics involved. There are rules and regulations, Bob. You got to realize they are building cars in a global market now, not just to meet standards in the United States of America. So when you take into account all the aspects of all the factors that have to go into designing and engineering and still trying to come out with a profit, which is why you build a car and sell it like that, is you got to make money. So all these factors are just so complicated and so involved and intertwined, especially the politics, that it's a ridiculous thing to me that they have to be this way, but this is the reality.
You know, what's interesting is you mentioned this. I'm just kind of coming back to things that we've touched on. You know, talking about buying a new car, buying a pre-owned car, going out as much as 8 years. I don't think I've seen anything longer than 8 years.
I don't know if I'm right on 8 years.
No,
that might be 7.
No,
I know.
There's 8-year loans out there.
Okay.
It's just unbelievable what you have to do to get the rate down.
I can't imagine anybody in the right mind, unless they were very unknowledgeable and naive, doesn't mean they're stupid. That just means their lack of information. Like a young person would finance any car for 8 years. That's just ridiculous. That is an absolute mistake financially.
Well, you know, one of the biggest mistakes that people make when buying a car is they focus on the payment and the payment only. So the dealers come in there with these things locked up at 8 years, and then they look at that payment. They go, I can make that payment.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
It does make an effect down there.
This is why they do what they do.
Yeah,
because they're looking at the payment. They're not looking at the future. That car isn't going to go 8 years without some major problem, and when it does, how are you going to afford that? So there's a number of things that are just, in my opinion, automobiles are the worst investment you can make. I mean, there's a few worse, but it's not a good investment. Drive moderate vehicles that are about worth what you're paying for them, and try not to fall into that upside-down situation that you're forced into with a lease or a purchase where you paid too much. In today's times, paying too much is almost impossible because everything is expensive. But you got to try. You have to do your research. Try your best. That's all anybody can ask of a person.
Well, if you believe the government, the inflation rate continues to come down, but you're definitely not seeing that all across the world. I don't know what they're looking at.
I don't know if you're familiar with how good the economy is right now. You may not be familiar with that. It's sitting in this office all day.
It's Friday. Don't even go get me into that discussion. This is Bob Brooks, 1-877-913-5357. I do have a line open if you'd like to talk to Tony Joe. We've got a line open. There was one other thing. Oh, yeah, I know what it was. You referred to the Kia and the Hyundai as throwaway cars. And I've heard you say that many times in the past, but just for our listeners who probably don't know what you mean, talk about that. And then follow that up with, are there other cars that you would, new cars being made that you would consider throwaway cars?
Not today. I would have to say no. There are no cars like the Kia and Hyundai of the past. Now, let me reiterate the past. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You see, Bob, what happened with, I believe, this is my own opinion, but this is just what I get from watching the industry. Hyundai and Kia wanted to get their share of the market. They wanted to break into the marketplace. So they were very inexpensive 20 years ago, okay? You could buy a Hyundai and get a 10-year warranty, 100,000, I think it was 10 years, it might still be, but they had this great warranty, and the car was cheap to buy, fairly inexpensive. And this is how they broke into the market. Now, once they get a foothold and get some name recognition and a reputation for being a major car manufacturer, their quality tightened up, became better and better and better, and now they're building a very good car. So you see how that worked? I mean, they were pretty sharp in how they approached the U.S. market. And this is Korean, by the way, that Koreans manufacturing is Hyundai and Kia. Now, a lot of people don't know this. Hyundai is a huge company. Hyundai builds backhoes and industrial equipment and all kinds of stuff. They are this conglomerate, worldwide, heavy-duty. I mean, they're not a stranger to building stuff, automotive things and such. So they kind of used to be a throwaway car because you bought them cheap, and you got, if you got 100,000 miles, they were pretty well whipped, and you got rid of them. But they were cheap for the man that needed something on the cheap right now, but needed, to get back on his feet or whatever the reason. You could buy it cheap, you could drive it, and then you had plans on getting rid of it eventually, trading it off, selling it, or junking it, depending on, how long you kept it. So that's how they broke into the market. And now I'd say that was quite a successful endeavor for them, because they really do have a good car now.
So what are you doing what you do all day long? You see a little bit of everything. What about the replacement parts that people
generally
are they're choosing to not go out and buy the new car. They're choosing to get the car fixed and make it last. Are they paying more today for the parts?
Yeah, the thing that I've noticed is if the vehicle is less expensive, MSRP, brand new. I have personally noticed that even though the car is cheaper to buy, like a Mitsubishi, I can't think of any particular one right now, but a cheaper vehicle, generally cheaper list price, the parts are more expensive when you go to repair them. Now, that's just something that I noticed in my little world of car repair. However, I will say this. Lately, in the past year or so, every car part is more expensive now. Inflation has taken its toll and reached the automotive industry, and, it lags behind a lot of things like the grocery store because there's so much supply that you have to deplete, and then all of a sudden, car parts creep up and up and up. So everything is expensive nowadays. But generally, to answer your question, the cheaper the car, you can expect to pay a little more for servicing.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What about the wait time for parts? Is that about the same as it's always been, or is that getting a little tight?
It's touch and go here and there. I got actually a 2016 Chevrolet truck as of today, this morning, that I can't get a particular part for fuel pump, which is a common problem, but I can't get one, a high-pressure fuel pump for this thing for, there is no time. I called and I said, here's the part I need. Well, we're out of stock. They're on back order. And I said, what's the ETA on any of them? And he said, there is no ETA. In other words, we can't even give you a time frame for you to see. I have to turn around and hang the phone up and call the customer.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I need some input,
Right. Tough job. This is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.